Dating men in this era is like being Bryce Dallas Howard in Jurassic Park, putting heels on in a jagged forest filled with hungry dinosaurs. My father taught me the two things that can nurture your nature for the worst are privilege and trauma, both becoming your public and private excuse for why you consistently fail yourself and others. They are like fog over your brain, making the reasons you never loved your child completely and irrevocably that you were not loved as a child, or that your absolute greed in every interaction comes from having a life unquestioned. The framing of your mind is either the owner of pain or astronomical wealth. I say this because men lie a lot, and like my dad, they think it's okay. When my mother describes the day my father and her met, she tries to paint for me with more love and tenderness, seeing me as her child that, like any, wants to know the love story for parents. The problem is my dad was a bigamist, which makes his entrance into her world creepy, unright, and even cruel. My dad flirted and seduced my mother while having a wife, kid, and another one on the way. But of course, no wedding ring on and no mention of them at all. She remarked how he could not stop smiling at her as she was working a case that he too was a part of. He was flirting away with her. And I feel so bad because he was being the coolest guy to actually be plotting evil. It was an energy I could not shake as my friends and I encountered men like him that thought the fact that they made you feel good covered up that they were acting wrong or worse, like another person. Most men do not catfish like my dad, but they do change their identity in some ways to make women believe they are good, both materially and morally. I call these men bumblefish, identity shifters versus identity hackers like my dad, which are known as catfish. Bumblefish appear set and settled in every way and will believe their own lies to avoid the emotional weights of rightfully angry exes, childhood cruelties, and insufficient funds. They've got mess, and women are their emotional pick-me-up or distraction from all of that, like retail therapy except with hearts and bodies on the rack. For Nina and her 3-date rule, she was dating a 55-year-old filmmaker that was uncertain about whether he wanted a wife and kids and obsessed with going Dutch while arranging for the most expensive restaurants. Of course, he wanted sex. Anna was retiring a man that had claimed to have moved to our city only to find he was just here for a 2-week trip with the boys. Of course, he wanted sex. Meanwhile, Josie had retired a Scottish man with a Spaniard accent claiming to be a stripper doing stem cell research. She laughed, claiming at least he was a fun, flagrant liar, not a hidden one. Of course, he too wanted sex. For all of us, we were beginning to realize it was going to be really hard not to get a liar, of which even I had terminated a bumblefish who had posted how he wanted kids in a relationship only to immediately and randomly DM me and assure that I did not want anything serious and that we should just keep things to sex. It was as if men understood that to get what they want from women, our love and bodies, they had to paint themselves as what we want from them: security, family, or just somebody who can take care of our love and body. Have respect for it. Of course, you think money and kids when I say that statement, but as a woman, I can tell you it is so much more nuanced. Every little girl will have a moment where she is unsafe with men, rejected by them, and even abused or publicly humiliated by them. Yet we still seek that one guy who cannot fathom doing such a thing to us, because even if the world does not see or treat us equally, our relationship will be our safe place. It will be the place where he sees us as equal. In the same way my body is safe with him, his guards can be pulled down to reveal he too has an emotional safe space with me. And it's not unmasculine. It's human. It sounds perfect, but bumblefish have infested the waters. Okay, so let's dissect that episode. Dating has become increasingly hard, I think. And you hear so many men, and I wrote an episode about the women you reach for. It hasn't come out yet. And basically it's about how I'm hearing so many men, where are all the low maintenance women? And I'm like, what? First of all, when you say a high maintenance woman, it's probably, a super gorgeous gal that loves a 5-star Michelin restaurant and you just want to take her to McDonald's. It just feels like one of those kind of, if she wants to go get a sugar daddy and travel the world, why are you going for her? Why are you trying to humiliate and shame her into the things she seeks? Shame her for the things she seeks in a relationship. Somebody to take care of her, somebody to be lavish to her. I mean, you want a low maintenance woman, look to your neighbors, look to your mom. But I think what the difference for me with catfish and bumblefish is that my father, one of the reasons I feel so bad for my mother, especially as a woman, is that my father was an extremely good liar and basically like invented an identity. Yes, he was a lawyer, but I don't know how he got away with it. He did not mention at all that he had kids, that he had another wife. I mean, he planned a destination wedding with my mom. And I have to ask her, like, did she meet his friends or something? Were they all covering for him? Because when I saw my dad, he was entering our world. He was hanging out with my mother's friends. He really, really loved my mother's friends. And to be honest, I only knew of my father's friends like in my teen years. And right around then he was getting sober. He was becoming extremely greedy with money. So I guess maybe he didn't have friends because of his addiction. But to be honest, I think the grand irony of my father is that he treated me and my mother like we were a frozen pack of icicles, that until he wanted a cherry flavored popsicle to just suck dry, he didn't open that freezer. Like it was almost like we were on ice. And he really did act like we didn't exist until he came over. And I think the difference between my father, who like just invented an entire identity, and a bumblefish is just, my friend went out on a recent date and the guy he was 6'2", and she was like, Deandra, he barely reached 5'4". My other friend who I always talk about that because she was dating this guy for 2 weeks and he love bombed Bridgerton, her booty. And like on a Sunday, she calls me crying because he actually lived in London and he was just there on vacation and he didn't want a long distance relationship. And it was just so messy and mean and weird. And his reliance that all that love bombing didn't transfer to love for her or that she could move on. I mean, he was like, we should get married. And they had a really great chemistry. I met him twice. And it was just the strangest incident. So strange, especially because it triggered, my father. I think in his head, he married my mom out of love. And for that, it erased the bigamy. It erased the whole other family that he had abandoned just to start with her. But he hadn't abandoned because I mean, obviously he was still married and still connected to them. But in his head, it was like, I really did choose you. You were my first marriage out of love. That one was by force. She got pregnant and she, used me, all this stuff. And I think with Bumblefish, which I call them because Bumble has lied to me as this benevolent app where we could all make friends. Like I literally swiped on this guy who was like, I want kids, I want a relationship. And he DM'd me immediately. I just really want sex. And I was like, oh God. And my other friend, Nina, I mean, this guy is 55 years old. He is 3/4 done with his life. And he is acting like he is 20 and still has time to like really think about kids and marriage. I mean, there's nothing sexy about a 7-year-old dad who's probably gonna, hopefully see his kid get to 10. There's just, it's a level of delusion. And also he's obsessed with going to the most expensive restaurants and going Dutch, which she has obviously left him because he became a heavy burden to her pride and her profit. But it's so weird because, like, with Nina, I think she, like so many other women, including myself, there's just such a level of unkindness and non courtship that is happening. And like with Anna, uh, she got courted by a man who was lying, who didn't even live in the city. So she got what women seek, but at a cost. And that's what's so weird. I feel like men do court you when they either A, really want you, like genuinely are in love, or B, want something from you and understand that there's this level of seduction that has to come to get that, like with my dad. And it's just so weird because I think now more than ever, women are seeing that a man could destroy your life. And that makes you seek something so much more genuine and richer because you're building yourself, you're loving yourself, you're healing yourself, and you're not going to just let anybody enter your world that cannot respect that. And I talk about it in an upcoming episode about true love. When I look at my father, he was very handsome, very charismatic, but he also looked extremely tired and was a very empty human being, very emotionally numb. And I think to myself, when I look at people like him who cheat and lie and are con men, but oh, they wear a suit. What I always found so fascinating is that they looked tired and unhappy compared to men who were really in love and doing it right and kind of giving that golden retriever energy that's going viral on TikTok. Those men look rested. And it's something that I mentioned at the end of the passage, which you can read on daddyrecovery.com. I think it's something that I noticed with Anna, and that like false Mr. Darcy she was dating for 2 weeks. There's just something so beautiful, at least I imagine for the male experience, men who are in love, and something that I've noticed in observing them. There's just something so beautiful to being emotionally vulnerable. I think we define masculinity as emotionless, and that's just so impossible. You are a human being. You have feelings, you have thoughts, you have dreams, you have fears. But in defining masculinity as just someone who doesn't tap into that because they've got a lead, it's almost irrational and it just doesn't make any sense. And the thing about true love is that it makes how nonsensical all that is clear. Because there's something about really being in love with somebody that is just so restful. You don't have to act. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to strategize. You don't have to come up with a master plan to get something like someone else's body. Like, why do you want my body so badly? And I think that's another element to women who are dating. Like, we are knowing our bodies. We are pleasing ourselves in every way. And we're doing it ironically for two reasons. Obviously, to build our self-love, but number two, to see in loving ourselves what we want from somebody in how they love us. And it's getting really disappointing and tiring to go out into the dating world and see such unloving men and date them and think, oh my God, is that all that there is? How much more do I need to lower my standards? I mean, my friend texts me today. She went on this date with this guy, and he spoke for 2 hours on how Mike Tyson is one of the wisest men he has ever heard. And albeit, I've seen some Mike Tyson vids. Yeah, he could be pretty wise, but it's like 2 hours. I went on a date one time with a guy that spoke about goldfish for 3 hours. And till this day, I don't know why I stayed. And the irony is he got bored with me because I didn't know anything about goldfish. I think there's like 23 species. And I was like, where are we? Why are we doing this? Is this what you deem attractive? Like this, I think for a lot of women, we dress up and we go and try to impress with the expectation that we're meeting somebody that also wants to impress us. And it's consistently disappointing to see men think that a 3-hour conversation about Mike Tyson and goldfish is really going to win any part of me, body, mind, soul, heart. It's almost like you really must not see me as a human being to think those are the topics. And you could laugh and say, no, no way. It's so surprisingly common how men just don't know how to date. They come in with this, I'm trying to see how I get you, how I get you. And that coldness and almost irrational nature is really shutting women off and shutting them off from the opportunity of resting. Like, you don't need a lead. You really do have to just meet me. And it's mesmerizing. And it's something that I think about a lot. I think women date to know what it is to be loved. Men date, obviously, to have sex, but like the man who is dating to find love wants to know what it is to fall in love, while women want to know what it is to be loved, to be taken care of, because we're already loving. We're raised to have this mentality of be caring and be generous and be open with your heart and make sure everybody's healed by it. So we are raised almost in love, and we're going into the dating world trying to be loved, trying to see who is going to give me back that energy that society has trained me to give by my nature, by my nurture, by this definition of femininity as something that is so sherry and generous and loving and never ask for anything back. But as a human being, you do need something back. In the same way, men can't always lead. You're a human being. You need rest. You don't always know. Sometimes it's really great if someone else plans, and it's almost manipulative, like with the director of just, I'm going to go to these expensive restaurants and then go Dutch, because that's me resting. No, that's not. It's again another act of manipulation, another act of trying to see and poke and prod somebody instead of just seeing if there could be love, the most powerful thing to make you realize you shouldn't be doing that. That's just so unnecessary. I think that's what love does. It makes you see how much you're carrying in terms of mental weight and emotional baggage. That's just not needed. And these bumblefish, my God, something as basic as your height, like that's the thing about that I thought with the guy who did this whole profile about how he wanted a relationship and then DM me, you just want sex, right? I just thought to myself, if you were honest, trust me, there is a woman who will be like, cool, yeah, let's do that. Whereas for women, the lies can be so disheartening, and it makes you just want to walk away because it really does break your heart. And it brings this tension of everything you say, I have to unpack. And it's something that I noted with my dad, who was always lying about everything. I remember the last time I saw him, I asked him, when was the last time you went to Puerto Rico? And he goes, oh, I haven't been back in years because that's where I met the love of my life, your mother. And this was like last year, the last time I saw him. Oh, and it was she was my greatest memory. He didn't know that I saw on Facebook he went the year before with his grandkids. Why did he say that is a murder mystery to me. But I guess he thought that would make me, I don't think men lie thinking it will make women feel better. I think they really do lie because it makes them feel better. Like that whole show was really just for him. And true love shows you there's no need for a show. And I think that's what's so sad about bumblefishing and doing these really basic lies. Someone is out there that is going to love you, that is going to want the same things as you, even if it's just sex, even if it's that you're putting your 6'4" and you're actually 4'3". Someone is out there to love you. And you don't need to lie and act like you're going to love me or you want the same definition of love just to end up going Dutch at an expensive restaurant or DMing me about goldfish. You know, it's just too messy, man. You're too messy. Check out daddyrecovery.com and follow Deandra on all music platforms. Business Class just came out. I would love to hear your commentary and follow me on my socials. Yeah.